Getting around the user interface. In this tutorial, we're going to give you a tour of the PhotoTune 3 user interface. To get started, I've just opened an image in Photoshop, and now I'm going to double click on PhotoTune 3 inside the On One panel. When you open PhotoTune 3, you'll see this dialog, and it's kind of like a choose your own adventure book. On the left side, you're going to see an option called Images with People. If you select this option, it'll take your image through the PhotoTune wizard with steps designed for working on a portrait image. If you select the middle option, Images Without People, it'll take your image through the PhotoTune wizard with steps that are designed to work on a landscape or general purpose image that doesn't contain people. And the third option on the right is called Pro Mode. And if you press this, you'll bypass the wizard and go straight to the professional user interface. Now don't worry, no matter what option you select, you can always go to the Pro Mode or back to the wizard easily. For this image, let's start in the wizard, and because it's of a landscape, I'm going to select the center option, Images Without People. When the wizard opens, it'll take over your screen, and Photoshop will be minimized to the background while we're working inside of PhotoTune. You'll see two versions of your image, one on the left and one on the right. When you work through the wizard, you're always going to see two copies of your image, and they're not necessarily a before or an after image. A lot of the time you're just comparing different options on the left or the right hand side. It's like going to the eye doctor. At the bottom in the left hand corner, it'll give you the name of the step as well as the number of the step that we're working on. In the center, it'll give you a short descriptive text about what to look for in your image to make your decision. Below that, on most steps, will be a slider, which will adjust the difference between the image, making them either a subtle change or a strong change. In the right-hand corner, there's a More Info button. Pressing this will open a floating palette, which will give you more information about the step that you're working on. If you're having a hard time making a decision, using the More Info panel can give you information that might help you make your decision correctly. Next to that is the Go Pro button. Pressing this will close the wizard and take your image straight to the Pro user interface instead. In the bottom left is the Find More Online button. This will open your web browser and take you to the On One Software website, where you can find more information about using PhotoTune. Then in the right-hand corner, we have the Select tool or the Move tool. It looks like a little arrow. This is what you're going to use to select which side you want to work on, whether you want to select the left image or the right image to move to the next step. Next to that is a Hand tool and a Zoom tool. And these work just like the Hand and Zoom tools do in Photoshop. If I select the Zoom tool and click on my image, it'll zoom in. And if I select the Hand tool, I can click and drag to reposition the image inside of my preview. Now most of the time in the wizard, you'll want to see the entire image. And that's the way it'll start out. And if you zoom in, you can easily get back to full screen just by double-clicking on the Hand tool. Or if you're adjusting the sharpness setting, you can double-click on the Zoom tool, which will zoom into 100%. To the right of that are the Cancel and the Apply buttons. The Apply button is only available at certain steps through the wizard process when the image can actually be applied and returned back to Photoshop. We'll teach you more about how to actually use the wizard in its own movie. I'm going to go ahead and press Go Pro now to take this image to the Pro user interface, and we'll show you how that works. Alright, now here we are inside of the Pro user interface. You notice a lot of the same elements that you saw in the wizard, including at the bottom the Find More Online button, as well as the Zoom and Hand tool and the Select tool, and the Cancel and the Apply buttons. Now let's talk about some of the new controls. At the top is the Mode Selector. When you work in the Pro mode, you have 4 different modes you can work in. The Tone mode for adjusting the tonality or the brightness and contrast in your image. The Color mode for adjusting color and removing color casts. The Skin Tune mode if you're working on a portrait image for adjusting color based on skin. And finally Detail for adjusting the detail of the sharpness in the image. And you can move from tab to tab in any order, however you'll get the best results if you work from left to right, adjusting the tone first through to the sharpening last. In the middle, you'll see previews of your image. On the left, by default, you'll see the original image, and on the right, you'll see the results of the current settings. On the right-hand side, you'll see several control panes. At the top is a navigator, which helps you navigate around the image. It's basically a bird's eye view, and if you're zoomed in on your image, let's say to 100%, you'll see a small red region of interest indicator marking the area that you're seeing in the preview. You can then click and drag to reposition the preview inside of the navigator. At the top, there are several zoom presets, which makes it easy to get just the zoom setting you need. The two that you'll use most often are the fit option, which will fit the image on screen, and the 1:1 option, which will zoom up to 100% or actual pixels. At the bottom of the navigator are before and after red, green, and blue values. So as you mouse over your image, it'll tell you the original values for that pixel and the after values. These can be useful when making color adjustments, especially if you mouse over a neutral gray area, you'll be able to see where the color cast is. Below that is an instruction panel, which will give you information about how to adjust the controls for each mode. Below instructions will be the controls for the individual mode you're working in. Right now it says tone and contains the tone controls because we're in the tone mode. But if I switch to something else, let's say color, you'll see how the label changes to color and the controls inside of it change. And at the bottom, you'll see the preset pane. This is where you can create, store, and apply presets. At the bottom, there are a couple of different new tools that you can use as well. The first is the preview toggle. Normally you'll work in this side-by-side before and after preview, but you can also toggle through a split screen side-by-side, a top and bottom compare, a top and bottom split screen, or working on just a single preview. And to the right of that is the snapshot camera. You can take a snapshot at any time. A snapshot is kind of like a temporary preset. It saves all the settings in your image, and it allows you to compare different setting options. Alright, a couple more things to show you. At the very top is the menu bar. In the menu bar, you'll be able to close and apply. These have the same options as cancel and apply in the bottom. You can save a preset, as well as show your preset folder and visit the On1 Exchange, where you can find more presets online. On a Mac, you'll have a Photoshop menu, where you can open the PhotoTune About box to see your serial number, as well as contact information for On1 software, and your PhotoTune preferences. On a Windows computer, you'll find these under the Edit menu and Help menu respectively. You'll also see a lot of the other controls that we've talked about repeated here in menu form for things like zooming in and zooming out, as well as the preview mode. Last but not least is the Help menu. Under the Help menu, you can open the PhotoTune 3 user guide, as well as find more tutorials online. This is also the place to check for updates for your software and to deactivate your software if you need to move it to another computer. Alright, now that you know your way around the user interface, watch the other video tutorials to learn how to adjust the features.